Good morning. It is, what is it, Wednesday morning. I ought to know that. It's church day. We got supper and study tonight. We bring grub at 6:30 and visit and have a little fellowship and partake of a morsel. For some of it, it's quite a bit more than a morsel. And then have a Bible study. We usually spend an hour to an hour and a half on Wednesday night together, eating and studying, which is what we're good at our church. We like to eat and we like to study the Bible. Now, we're in the book of the prophet Jeremiah, chapter 13. We may finish chapter 13 today. It's quite possible. Let's see. Yesterday we began in verse 19. I will recap that, and we will continue with our studies in Jeremiah. Beginning in verse 19, the cities of the south shall be shut up, and none shall open them. Judah shall be carried away captive, all of it, and it shall be wholly carried away captive. Remember, when he talks about the cities of the south, he's talking about the southern kingdom, not the cities south of Jerusalem or south of Judah. God saw the kingdom as it was when he organized it, and under David and Solomon. The extent of the kingdom is not nearly the extent of the land that God gave to Abraham, but it was the extent of the kingdom that they united at the time between all 12 tribes when they made David king of all Israel instead of just Judah. And so when he talks about the cities of the south, remember in the days of Solomon's son Rehoboam and one of Solomon's generals, also of the priests of the princely family, of the royal family, they had a civil war, and God gave Jeroboam the northern part of the kingdom, which they named Israel. Their capital was Samaria. Rehoboam kept the southern kingdom with the tribe of Judah and the tribe of Benjamin. And the capital was Jerusalem, and it lasted about 100 years longer from the fall and the captivity than its northern neighbor Judah did. When he talks about the cities of the south, he's talking about Judah, Jerusalem and Judah, and all the cities in Judah. Verse 20, lift up your eyes and behold them that come from the north. Where is the flock that was given thee, thy beautiful flock? Remember, the armies of Babylon are coming now, not only from the north, but also from the west. They've landed barges in Dan, and they're pressing east from there, and they are pressing west from the other side of the Jordan River in what is today Syria and Jordan and western Iraq, and they're pressing in toward them from there. Lift up your eyes and behold them that come from the north. Where is the flock that was given thee, thy beautiful flock? God says through Jeremiah to Judah, didn't I give you a flock? Who's he talking to? He's talking to the pastors. He's talking to the king. Remember, this is directed. Look back at verse 18. This is directed to the king and his court, to the princes, to the priests, the prophets, the rich people, the people who are controlling things, the king's court, the ruling class, the people who in any society make all the decisions and spend all the money, and the poor people work. It's like Bob Wills sang, and take me back to Tulsa. Says the poor man chops the cotton, and the rich man makes the money. Little bee sucks the blossom, big bee gets the honey. Poor man chops the cotton, and the rich man gets the money. That's the way it always is in every society. And don't fool yourself. It's that way here too. Just look at the difference between our lords and us. These fantastically, hugely rich people that controlled everything. They control the media. Let's don't get off into that. They own it all, so they can do what they want to with it. The same thing was true in Judah. God gave them a flock. He's directing it in verse 18, saying to the king and to the queen, humble yourselves, sit down. For your principality shall come down, even the crown of your glory. I'm judging you, you rulers, the people in charge. I gave you a flock. I gave you a beautiful flock. Well, where is it? What did you do with it? What wilt thou say when he shall punish thee? Jeremiah says, for thou hast taught them to be captains and chief over thee. These rulers you have over you, you put them in place by your submission and by your kissing up to them and bowing down to them and doing what they say when they really had no other power you at all. Because the only power they had was the power of the army. The only power the army had was which side the rich people wanted to support. It's the way it's always been until the United States. And for a period of time, we were the country that we purported to be. But then we took a left turn and just kind of fell off the scale. We fought a civil war in 1861 to 1865 because we weren't who we were supposed to be. We tried then to be what we were supposed to be. But Reconstruction only lasted like 13 years, and then it was gone. It was too hard to do. Then, if not legal enslavement, effective enslavement was completely in place by 1900, 1910s. The Klan controlled the South. But from the end of World War II until the early 60s, we tried real hard. But while we were trying to be who we were supposed to be, our Declaration of Independence and our founding documents, there was a lust of other things that had entered in, like in the parable of the sower. And we wanted other things besides God. We made that clear to God when we Supreme Court threw out prayer public school in 1962. And shortly following that, banned the posting of the Ten Commandments in public schools. We were telling God we didn't need him, didn't want him. So, on November 22nd, 1963, God allowed the murder of our king. That was the beginning of the punitive judgment. They lasted until 2001, September 11th. And that was the beginning of our judgment of punishment. I may have misspoken. 1963, the Kennedy assassination was the beginning of our remedial judgments, where God put more and more stuff on top of us to try to bring us back to him. JFK assassination, Vietnam, student unrest, Nixon, RFK, Nixon, the criminal, over and over and over again. He gave us these horrible things. He gave us Reagan and tax cuts and transferring all the wealth from the middle class to the upper crust, to the richest people, to the autocrats, to the people who ran over, the oligarchs. And nothing would stem the tide, Democrat or Republican or not. They just completely destroyed the country with NAFTA, free trade, and all this stuff. We are completely ruined. We are in a shambles. We are sitting on our own slag heap right now. If you don't believe it, if your own eyes won't convince you that that's where we are, well, then look at your heart. The national heart has become a slag heap. Turn on any cable news station and you will realize that we are sitting atop the slag heap. No politician, almost no politician cares about anything except staying in office. That's all. For as thou hast taught them to be captains and chief over thee, shall not sorrows overtake thee as a woman in travail? Back then, he's telling the people that you supported and you thought were your leaders. They've been raping and pillaging you all this time. Now there's nothing left. There's nothing they can do for you. And the enemy is encroaching from the outside. It's the same thing here. He says, the people that we've taught to be our captains in chief, they brought sorrows on us that overtake us. I tell you what, I would venture that there is no one listening to this program right now who couldn't do a better job than the people we have in office right now. You can do better than Hawley. You can do better than Governor Parson. You can do better than President Biden. Anybody listening to this program right now could do a better job than these people who have sold their souls to interests and corporations who own them and pay for their votes. Any common man or woman could do a better job than the people we have ruling over us now. That's a fact before God. He told Judah to cry because of the people you have ruling over you. He tells us now to cry and weep because of the people we have ruling over us. They're not better than you are. They aren't as good as you are. And if thou say in thine heart, wherefore come these things upon me? Why are these things happening to me? For the greatness of thine iniquity are thy skirts discovered and thy heels made bare. I've stripped you naked, God said, so the world can see what a big fat whore you are. That's what God is doing to us, beloved. He is stripping us bare and making us see that the emperor has no clothes, that our sin has washed up over our head, that we have fallen for lies and more lies and believing that sexual perversion is normal, that men can be women and women can be men, and that men should marry men and women should marry women, and that we should slaughter our children and abandon them to the state. This is utter madness. God judged Judah because they went whoring after other gods. And he went after Judah because they sacrificed their children to Molech and Baal. And he went after them because they believed lies from their leaders, from their pastors, from their prophets, their priests, their princes, and the king himself. The only king who did not lie to them in the last 40, 50 years of their existence was Josiah, good King Josiah. I take that back 30 years because his grandfather Manasseh had a change of heart and came back and tried to preach that God was the only Lord there was. But he had done so much wickedness in his own life that it was too late to correct the damage that he had done himself. Many of us find that out when we come to the Lord after being away or having never been his, and we come to report for duty and we look at the trail of debris strung out behind us and the broken hearts and the wrecked lives that we've left in our wake, including our own, and what we've done to other people. And we realize that all we can do is work for him now and in any capacity he will let us, because there are some things that people like me can't do because of a wicked, wretched past. There's too much damage there. Too much damage. Too much baggage. If I had a high public profile, whatever ministry that I was in would probably take a lot of flack and say, well, how come you got a drunk being your CEO or your lead pastor? Well, I'm not a drunk anymore. I used to be a drunk. Jesus took it away from me. I put the cork in the jug on February 6, 1997. It ain't come out since. But that's beside the point. The damage was done. I'd wrecked a lot of stuff. And I had a lot to answer for. I had to answer for it here. Jesus forgave me of every sin. And Jesus will forgive any sin, but not one excuse. I had a life full of excuses. Well, I didn't pay this because, and I didn't do that because. It took me years to get straight with the government. It took me years to get straight with my creditors. It took me years to get straight with people that I had wronged, and some of that ledger will never be cleared because a lot of those people are dead now. Good morning, Berta. Good to see you, sister. You see, the reason that the stuff came upon Judah and all of the ills that were coming upon Judah was because of their sin. I guarantee you that everything wrong in our country right now, everything wrong in the world right now is because of sin. And just because you're not the head of communist China or Putin or somebody, don't think that you're so much better than they are. The old saying goes like this: you don't have to be as bad as Hitler to go to hell, because if you don't know Christ, you're just as bad off as Hitler. You don't have to be as bad as somebody else to be as bad off in respects to eternity. Can the Ethiopian change his skin, or the leopard his spots? Then may ye also do good, which you're accustomed to doing evil. 23. That's where we wound up quitting yesterday. You're so used to sinning, God is telling Judah that you can't do anything else. It never occurs to you to do the right thing. That is happening here in the United States. The fruit is so rotten that it spoiled the whole barrel. It's just wickedness day in, day out. It's wickedness when you turn on the TV. It's wickedness when you listen to the radio. It's wickedness when you go out into the world and try to work. People hate God. And for the majority of the people in the United States who claim to love God, they love a God of their own design. They don't love the God of the Bible. They don't love the God who lives forever. They don't love the God who actually exists. They love some kind of God that they've created in their own mind that lets them do whatever they want to do. It's not the God of the Bible. That Christ cannot and will not save because he doesn't exist. The only God there is Jesus Christ, as revealed in the pages of the Bible, who says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. God told Judah through Jeremiah that you're so bad that you can't even change gears. You can't start doing good because you don't even know where to start. You are so corrupt. That is the United States. That is our society that we live in. Our poisoned, corrupted, sinful society. It is useless, just like this girdle that this chapter is about. the soiled girdle. God tells Jeremiah to buy a new girdle and put it on. It's like a fancy pair of underwear. Imagine thigh-high BVDs. And so he puts it on, and he wears it for many days. And God tells him not to wash it. You could just imagine. Well, then he tells him to pull it off and to take it to the river Euphrates, which is hundreds of miles away, and bury it next to the river. He does that. Then sometime later, God says, go back and dig it up. When he goes and digs it up, it's useless. It's just a bunch of filthy, nasty rags. It has rotted to pieces. It's not good for anything. It cannot be repaired. That is our society right now. It cannot be repaired. There is nothing ahead of us but judgment. But you can be saved. You can be redeemed. You can escape the wrath to come. Turn to Christ. Bow down before him. Confess your sin. All confession means is telling God that he's right and you're wrong. Commit your life to him. Follow him and believe the gospel. Believe the gospel. The gospel is this, that Jesus suffered and died for our sins according to the scriptures, and was buried, and he rose the third day according to the scriptures. He's alive then, he's alive now, he's alive forevermore, and he'll save you if you ask him to. He is coming back to judge the quick and the dead, and he's coming soon, so you need to get ready today. Beginning in verse 24 for today. Therefore will I scatter them. This is God talking to Jeremiah. Therefore will I scatter them as the stubble that passeth away by the wind of the wilderness. My family came from southwest Texas, and we would watch the land transfer. And that wind would blow the dust and the rock. It came up out of Mexico, hot and suffocating. And it would blow across the land and blow across the highway, and you could see it blowing. You could see the dust blowing from one side of the road to the other. You could see it on the hill. You could see it moving here and there. Just like you watch rain clouds, but it don't rain much in Kimball County. I think their average is 14 inches a year or something like that. It's pretty dry there. And then that wind stays up for days at a time. It just dries everything out. It dries your skin out. You got to use chapstick, and you got to use like Gold Bond or something. It just wrinkles you up and eats you up and dries you out. And then you see the tumbleweeds roll. Tumbleweed is a dried up sagebrush, and it just dries up and it blows away and it rolls from here to there. Drifting along with the tumbling tumbleweed. The old Sons of the Pioneers song. Now, they weren't popular anymore by the time I was born, so you really got to go back and look, but they made some great records. And matter of fact, Roy Rogers, before he was Roy Rogers, when he was Leonard Sly, he was a singer with the Sons of the Pioneers. I will scatter them as the stubble that passeth away by the wind of the wilderness. He's going to blow us away. And he can do it. Verse 25. God says through Jeremiah, this is thy lot, talking to Judah, the portion of thy measures from me, saith the Lord. That's what you get. All you get is the dust, the dirt, the wind, blowing the stubble. What is the stubble? The stubble is a memory of the plant that was. It's dead. And the wind finally makes it give up whatever root is left as it has dried on the bush and on the root. And the dry wind eats at it and pulls it up out of the ground, and it rolls and tumbles. That's all you got left, said the Lord, is a tumbling tumbleweed. That's it. That's your inheritance. I gave you everything, and that's all that's left of it. Why? This is thy lot, thy portion of thy measure for me, saith the Lord. Why? Because thou hast forgotten me and trusted in falsehood. See, they had forgotten the Lord their God. They had forgotten his judgments, his commandments, his statutes. They had forgotten who he is. They had forgotten their covenant with him. They had forgotten the covenant he made with them on Mount Sinai. They had forgotten the covenant that he had made with David about the throne and the kingdom. They had forgotten about the covenant, the original covenant, the Palestinian covenant they called at the time, but I call, of course, the Abrahamic covenant, the covenant that God made with Abraham about the land that he would give him. He says, wherever you walk, wherever you can walk, I'm giving that land to you. That land reached north to southern Turkey. It reached west into western Iraq. It reached to the southeast into parts of Saudi Arabia. It reached, of course, to the south is the Red Sea. It reached south by west into Egypt. And all up the Mediterranean coast on the east, all the way up past Lebanon, and all the way up to Turkey. That was Israel. That was the Israel that God gave to Abraham. And it wasn't called Israel then. It was just the promised land, the covenant land. This is the land that I give to you and your seed after you. You see, the citizens of Judah and Jerusalem had forgotten those covenants. They had forgotten the God of those covenants. They had forgotten completely about what God had done for them, how he had brought them up out of Egypt, how he had brought them into a land flowing with milk and honey, how he had given them the law, how he had given them judges, how he had given them kings. And Judah had had several good kings. The northern kingdom of Israel didn't have any. That is why they lost their country about 100 years before Judah did, because God stayed his hand for a little while and did not judge them yet. This is thy portion, the portion of thy measures for me, saith the Lord, because thou hast forgotten me, that's part one, and trusted in falsehood. Remember, believing lies. The main lies that God was judging them for was during the days of Josiah, the prophets, the priests, the princes, the ruling class, the hires up, the court of the king. They were all saying that God would not destroy Jerusalem because that's where the temple was. And they believed it. The lie that they believe now during the reign of wicked Jehoiakim is that there will be peace. Their country is a puppet of Babylon. Their king is a puppet king, that the king of Babylon sat on the throne. And he has to pay money to the king of Babylon, to Nebuchadnezzar, in order to stay alive. And in order to do that, he has to rape, burn, and pillage his own people to get the gold and silver to pay Nebuchadnezzar. He's beating his people to death. That's why they're so poor. That's why nothing works. He's extracting, like pulling it's like in the Holocaust when the Nazis would pull the gold teeth from the mouths of the poor dead Jews that they had just murdered in the genocide, and threw them in a bucket so they could sell them on the black market and buy a few more bullets to kill Americans and Russians. Oh, and British. Let's don't forget Monty up there in Belgium, right? General Montgomery. They trusted in falsehood. They said peace, peace, and they were being invaded. The armies were encroaching in on them. They did not understand that Babylon had conquered the entire world at this point except for Egypt. They had to either control Israel, which was the shortest land path and the best and had water and stuff, and for moving armies, it was the best path to go into Egypt. They either had to control Judah or they had to conquer it. They will eventually conquer it right now in 602 BC when this message is taking place. They are just controlling it through a puppet king, Jehoiakim. And they trusted in falsehood. And those weren't the only two lies they trusted in. They trusted in other lies. They trusted in the gods of Egypt. They said, if we burn cakes and bake cakes and sacrifice them to the Queen of Heaven, she will have mercy on us. You know, that is ISIS. That is, it goes back to Semiramis and Nimrod, the original Babylon, the Tower of Babel. It all goes back to Babylon. Today, all false religion goes back to Babylon. There are no exceptions. It all came from Babylon. Even in cults and heretical Christian groups, or so-called Christian groups, all of their fallacies, all of their heresies, all of their false doctrine goes back to Babylon. Mystery, Babylon the Great, we can read about it in Revelation chapter 17. Y'all do that sometime. It will help you understand what happened to Judah in 602 BC. And it will help you understand what is happening to the United States of America right now. They believed in more lies than just the ones God was judging them for. They believed they were indestructible. They believed they had an army that could fight. They believed that they could make an alliance with Egypt and someday make the Babylonians go home. They believed that the gold and silver that the rulers extracted from a really oppressed people at the time. Is anybody paying too much taxes? You know, I'm poor, so I don't pay a lot of taxes. But when I made a lot of money, I paid a lot of taxes. But see, now I'm old and poor, and I'm an honest preacher, so I'm not rich. Most honest preachers are not rich because they spend their time ministering instead of making money. This is just a fact. I don't want to cast aspersions on anybody. I won't name names. But I depend on God to take care of me. And I'm sure there are some godly men and women who do. And if he takes care of them in splendor, I guess that's between them and God. But he takes care of me more at the subsistence level. But I want to praise his name. And I think what he does is he needs to keep me humble because I have a large ego that we have to not feed, but have to restrain all the time. Because with an ego, you get anger. And with an ego, you get resentments, and you get grudges, and you get all kinds of things like you see played out in politics today. Well, they did this to me, and so I'm going to do this to them. Judah trusted in falsehoods. We trust in falsehoods. Why is this happening to us? God says, because thou hast forgotten me and trusted in falsehoods. And that's why. We're at a critical time in the United States, but you may be in a critical time in your life. I urge you to come to Jesus. to fly to Jesus, to cry with Jesus, to dance with Jesus, to love Jesus, fall in love with Jesus. Make him your God and your King and your Lord, and serve him now. It's never too late. Doesn't matter how much you've sinned. It doesn't matter what you've done. All that matters is who he is and what he can do and will do. Remember the old Stuart Hamblen song, it is no secret what God can do. What he's done for others, he'll do for you. And he will. Come to Christ today. God bless you.